Just like, okay. No, I know. I'm just trying to make sure that I can't see that the sound is working, but I think I can trust it. Okay. Namyo Renge Kyo. Namyo Renge Kyo. Namyo Renge Kyo. In this moment, we open the mind of enlightenment and enter into relationship with the spirit of discernment. May we see and hear, receive and embrace the infinitely profound wisdom of the great and mystical law of the universe. Good evening. Thank you all for your presence tonight. I know as we get closer to the holidays and the new year, it gets easier to kind of check out and disconnect from the present moment. So I really appreciate your presence right now. I want to ask that as you be mindful of your present moment self, that you stay here, like in this space with me. Um, I ask that you be present for me as I share my journey, as I share a little bit about myself and how I came to the practice of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. In my asking that you be present, I also want to be honest and say that I have not always been the kind of person to be present in the moment. I I had a lot of struggles with being grounded in my right now. I would often get lost in my thoughts. I would project into the future a lot of fear. I would have a lot of worries about the past, and I would forget what's really real. Like what is the actual thing? But then I was introduced to Buddhism, and I was introduced to a practice of mindfulness, and that helped me get grounded in the present moment a little bit more. In Buddhism, I learned that any moment that I had breath, I could have peace accessible to me. That was really important for me in my life, particularly at the time that I was introduced to Buddhism. I was transformed by that simple truth that in my present moment, as long as I had breath, I could have peace. Buddhism in that way really changed my life. It completely transformed me. My Buddhist practice is the reason I left my military career to pursue ministry. It's the reason I released myself from the vanity of hair and designer clothes. Not that, designer clothes ain't real fly and all of that, but it was like getting in the way of me like really showing up sometimes. And my practice kind of helped me let go of some of those things. My Buddhist practice is also the reason that I changed my legal name to Ian. Ian is a combination of my birth name and the mantra of my Buddhist practice. Ebony Nam Myoho Renge Kyo means I have faith in the mystical law of the universe. The name Ian is a reminder of both who I was born as and who I've transformed to. My name is an affirmation of who I am in the present moment, as well as the power I have to reshape myself as needed. The concept of what I'm saying may be kind of difficult to understand, and I'll admit it's kind of difficult for me to explain. So I want to offer what I think might be a helpful comparison. Some people who are familiar with the Bible may recall a story of Moses and the burning bush. In the book of Exodus, there's a scene of Moses asking God how he should address God. Moses wanted to know who he should say was sending the message of freedom to the Israelites. Basically, Moses was asking God, "What is your name?" In Exodus 3 and 14, Moses, when Moses asked his question, God responded, "I am who I am." Some scholars have translated the text a little differently to say, "I will be who I will be." But a classmate of mine, a fellow Star King seminarian, shared an interpretation that really resonated with me. He offered Yahweh as, "I will be who tomorrow demands." I appreciated this perspective. I felt it expressed a similar sentiment of my own interpretation of God, God as the spirit of metamorphosis, God as the spirit of change, God as the energy of Myoho Renge Kyo, the mystical law of the universe, the force of transformation, the God that tomorrow demands. There's a story in my Buddhist practice that wonderfully conveys the spirit of metamorphosis, a story of transformation into what tomorrow demands. The narrative comes from an ancient sacred text, the same text inspired by my Japanese expression of faith, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. The Buddhist holy book has been translated to many languages. The Japanese version is titled Myoho Renge Kyo. The English version, Wonderful Dharma of the Lotus Flower Sutra, or simply the Lotus Sutra. The story I want to share comes from chapter 12 of the Lotus Sutra. It's a story of radical change, a story that resembles my own metamorphosis. The narrative begins in a setting much like this one, with people gathered discussing spiritual matters. They were gathered to celebrate the mystical law of the universe. In that assembly, there was a person named Shariputra. He is one of the Buddhas, one of the disciples of the Buddha. And while he was there, he asked, "Is there anyone who has obtained a full understanding of this mystical law of the universe? Has anyone actually achieved Buddhahood from studying the Lotus Sutra?" And this wise sage there named Manjushri, who also had like clairvoyant kind of skills, was like, "Actually, yeah, there is. There's a girl. She's 8 years old, and she has obtained the wonderful Dharma. Actually, this girl is a dragon girl, and she's become a Buddha." He also said that she had so much eloquence that she could preach the Dharma like nobody's business. This little girl of 8 years old, this dragon girl of 8 years old, could preach. He also said that this little dragon girl had so much compassion that she loved all beings as if they were her own children. A child herself loved all beings as if they were her own children. It was really beautiful. But Shariputra was shocked. Honestly, I think he was a little jealous. He responded, like, "What? There's no way. There's no way that some little 8-year-old dragon girl attained Buddhahood. There's no way that she understands this law because you have to study for like hella long before you can even touch the law. There's no way. There's no way." And then plus, she's a woman. Like, women are filthy. Shariputra said that women are impure, women are incapable of becoming fully enlightened. And then that very moment, the dragon girl happens to appear. She just came in, like she came to come pay her respects to the Buddha at that moment. And before she can even get to where she was going, Shariputra noticed her and was like, "Yo, I heard that you obtained Buddhahood. I heard that like you have reached the stage of full enlightenment, and I want to know how you did it. Matter of fact, how did you do it so quickly at only 8 years old? And even more than that, like, how'd you do it being a girl, being a dragon girl, no less? Like, I don't even really believe you. The dragon girl responded with the gesture. She pulled out an infinitely precious jewel and gave it to the Buddha. The Buddha accepted it without hesitation. And then the dragon girl turned to Shariputra and said, I offered my precious jewel to the Buddha and he accepted it without hesitation. Watch how quickly this wisdom that I have gets accepted by the people who I'm going to share it with. And in that moment, the dragon girl, transformed into an adult man, entered the realm of human beings and enlightened millions of people. All the people, all the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, that's like other halfway enlightened people, really compassionate people, they watched this from their realm and were really overjoyed. So when I first read this story, I had a lot of feelings. On one hand, I was really like excited. I was really happy because like the dragon girl was pretty badass. Like that was pretty dope. But I was also tripped out because why did the dragon girl have to transform into a man? If anything, why couldn't she just transform into an adult woman, go into the human realm and save all these beings? Then I remembered that the text was written over 2,000 years ago, back when patriarchy was even worse than it is now. This story is as old as a lot of the Jesus stories. In fact, it actually has some resemblance to one of the Jesus stories. In a hidden gospel, there's a quote of Jesus proposing a similar transformation as that of the dragon girl. Verse 114 of the Gospel of Thomas conveys a scene of the disciples to include Mary Magdalene, which was a big deal because Mary Magdalene was, there was a lot of dirt on her name. So for her to be in this scene with Jesus is already a big deal. But in this gathering, one of the disciples, Simon Peter, says to them, quote, make Mary leave us, for females don't deserve life. Jesus responds by saying, hold on. Look, I will actually quote, I will guide her to make her male, so that she too may become a living spirit resembling you males. For every female who makes herself into a male will enter the kingdom of God. End quote. Again, I was like, seriously? Like Mary has to transform into a man? But I don't offer this comparison to further emphasize the patriarchal and sexist perspectives of the time. I offer it to highlight that gender transformation for the purpose of salvation is not that crazy of a concept. The notion of changing one's gender identity as a means to reach one's goal isn't so far fetched. To me, these stories show that both Mary Magdalene and the Dragon Girl had the ability to harness the power of metamorphosis, the power to transform to who their mission required them to be at that time. They could draw from the Spirit of God that declared, I will be who tomorrow demands. Mary and the Dragon Girl had the power to say, I will be the version of myself required to attain my goal. Granted, I prefer the story of the Lotus Sutra over that of the Gospel of Thomas. I value the Lotus Sutra for placing the power of radical transformation in the hands of the Dragon Girl herself. It didn't need to be something for Jesus to do on Mary or somebody else's behalf. For me, the story of the Lotus Sutra demonstrates the authority women have had throughout history. Authority to transform or morph into whatever image of strength and power other folks needed to see. Not that the women weren't already strong and powerful, they just used their power to make other people see their strength as it really is. Sadly, society has historically painted the image of strength and authority as male. Because of this, I don't think the Dragon Girl story was really about her changing into a man. It was about her embodying her authority. Her power to transform as the situation needed. She changed herself to meet her goal before circumstances around her changed. Actually, let me say that again. She changed herself to meet her goal before the circumstances around her changed. She didn't wait for people to change. She changed herself. She changed to meet her objective. There are also many modern examples of women who transformed into men to achieve their goals. I think most people are familiar with the brave women who dressed up as men in order to enter the war. There are also stories of courageous spiritual women, women who pretended to be men in order to get access to monastic teachings before nuns were allowed. Even today, in our current times, there are female writers that change their names and gender pronouns in order to have their literature published and accepted. People change their gender identity for a lot of reasons. Any reason someone chooses is their own to decide. The Dragon Girl chose to transform in order to have her message accepted amongst human beings. And to her, I would say, thank you for your boldness, your willingness to transform for humans to receive your message. Joan of Arc pretended to be a man so that she could fight in the war. And again, to her, I would say thank you. J.K. Rowling neutralized her gender so that Harry Potter books would be accepted. Thank you. I love Harry Potter. And there are some whose names I do not know. The women, Black women of long ago, who may have dressed as men to avoid being handled in the way some women were and still are handled sometimes. And to them, I say thank you for choosing your safety. Thank you for modeling power in your own way. I'm grateful to these boldly courageous women who transformed themselves in order to be heard, in order to be accepted, in order to be safe. The transformation of these women gave me permission to transform myself for my own reasons. I'm grateful to them. And wouldn't it be wonderful if transformation to feel safe wasn't necessary? Wouldn't it be ideal if all people could just focus on becoming the best versions of themselves and not have to worry about their gender? I mean, like, why is gender tied to any specific role anyway? What I'm about to tell you now is something I don't share with many people. It's a personal story. 5 years ago, I was extremely depressed. Daily, I battled deeply, deeply, deeply low self esteem. I was painfully shy. I didn't like my voice. I thought I was ugly. I detested my body. I struggled with my gender identity. I hated that I was gay, and I felt so worthless. I just knew the God of my Christian childhood despised me. I felt that he and my biological father abandoned me because I was truly abominable. I thought I was a monster, a repulsive sinner, undeserving of salvation, undeserving of love. I felt so alone, ashamed. I suffered every day. It was unbearable. I wanted to give up hope, give up efforts towards life, give up and damn my soul to the hell I no longer believed in. I tried to give up, let go of life. Then, just as I gave up, Spirit stepped in. I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. As soon as I gave up, truly gave in, the God of change showed me a way of transformation. Spirit opened my eyes and expanded my heart and enlightened my mind to possibilities completely outside of my scope of thinking. My views on religion, spirituality, gender, sexuality had been pretty limited up to that point. I had to be broken open in order to even consider alternative approaches to life. I used to believe that everything that wasn't explicitly endorsed by the Bible was evil and of the devil. If it wasn't deemed acceptable in my church, it wasn't right, which meant I wasn't right. But then a coworker invited me to her church. It was a Buddhist temple. She didn't know my background. She had no idea how I might respond. In the military, people aren't really allowed to talk too much about religion, and the military tries to avoid conflict in that way. But thank God, Sandra Silva listened to her heart and shared her faith with me. She didn't know at the time, but she saved me that day. I needed to be shown another way. I needed to be shown that I could be like the dragon girl, that I could transform for my own reasons. I could change into whoever I needed to be if it helped me make it to the next day. I could transform into who my tomorrow demanded. Sandra invited me to trust in the mystical law of the universe, invited me to open my mind to spirit in a different way that I could live my life. I believe when Sandra introduced me to Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, she introduced me to God under a different name. I, like a lot of people, struggled to find my path. I had a really hard time discovering my true nature, uncovering my authentic self. I had to unlearn a lot of things, unlearn lies about who God is, who God loves, unpack false notions of self that others had placed on me. I had to unpack what it meant for me to be a woman, what it meant to me to be queer. I had to let go of binary thinking, release hangups that were limiting the full expression of my identity, release hangups that were hindering me from living my truth. I underwent a radical transformation. It still isn't over, and it probably never will be. And that's okay. Similar to the Dragon Girl, I transformed into the man, to the woman, to the being I always wanted to be. Her name is Ian Hill, and I'm grateful to be me. I get to share my message of change, connect with others, and share our truths. I get to live as the person of God's purpose, and that is more than okay. As I close this talk, I want to ask, is there anything hindering you from being your person of purpose? Do you have any hangups that might be getting in the way of your message? Who is it that your tomorrow demands? What change is needed to bring that version of you to the forefront? What transformation do you need to make your mission come to fruition? What transformation do you need to make to achieve your goal, your objective? Whatever it is, you can do it. No matter what change is required, you can make it happen. You can be it. I believe in your power to transform. I believe in our power to change. I know that we can change. Without a doubt in my mind, I know. There's a song, there's a song that comes to mind that I want to share as my closing. It says, I know we can can change. I said that I know we can change. Oh God, oh I know we can change because the angels in heaven done signed our name. You can sing or hum along. I know we can change. I said that I know we can change. Good God, oh, I know we can change because the angels in heaven done signed our name. Thank you.